Sherm Chester with you on this edition of the Seacoast Sports Forum. We got our original guest, the man who was our first guest on the Seacoast Sports Forum. Oh gosh, Jim, I don't know how many years ago that was, but Jim Tufts. And welcome back to the forum.
It's always great to be back and visit with you.
Years ago, Jim was retiring from Exeter High School as well. Let's see. At that point, it was you had been the hockey coach, you had been the soccer coach, and official. I mean, you're still officiating, but now you do a little coaching, right?
I coached this winter at Phillips Exeter Academy with the girls hockey program. Yep.
Well, we'll talk about hockey a little later in the program. What this time of year is a big time of year for Jim Tufts, and the folks in the Special Olympics of New Hampshire. We're going to have a big event coming up in May, and that's Jim. I want you to tell folks what that's all about and how they can be a part of it.
Yep. So one of the other hats that I wore at Exeter High School was the Special Olympics program, and Mrs. Hannah Grenier has taken over that program at Exeter. But each spring we host a meet, and it gives so the kids have started. We've been out 3 weeks now, running and jumping and throwing and doing track practice a couple times a week, as have all the other communities. And so on May 17th, we will host a meet at Exeter High School Sunday, the 17th, which gives the Special Olympic athletes a chance to compete. Most high school teams play 16, 18, 20 lacrosse, baseball, softball games, usually have 6 or 8 track meets and then a state meet. And the Special Olympics kids, and the culmination of their season is June 12th and 13th with the state games at UNH. But we will host a meet Sunday, the 17th of May at Exeter High School for mostly teams in the Seacoast area to have a chance for those kids to run on a track and compete against other folks. So it's a real competition.
Now, I'll tell you, it's a fun day, and to see all those athletes getting involved in whatever event it is and putting it all out there, it makes you an old guy like me, makes me feel good to be a part of it. And I know you always can use folks to help out, volunteers to help out during the events that day. So I want to do that right off the top. How could folks get in touch if they want to be a part of what's going to happen on the 17th?
They can register ahead of time. Well, actually, the easiest thing is to show up at the track. The easiest thing is show up at 8 o'clock on the 17th. And my good friend Maddie Carboni is my volunteer registration man and finds a job for everybody. One day, fill out a piece of paper and off you go. And you're absolutely right, Sherm. It's the kind of event when people come and volunteer, they walk away and say, "When's the next one?"
Right.
They just they want to be part of it. The athletes have a great day. Their families get to celebrate their achievements, their grandparents. And it's just, it's one of those great days for the athletes and for everybody.
It is, and Mother Nature so far has cooperated, and I'm looking forward to it being a little later in May this year. Maybe it'll
Yeah,
be a little warmer.
I pushed it back a couple weeks for a variety of reasons, but we pushed it back a couple weeks, and we think that will help a great deal. But I have so many good friends in this community that come out and make it a successful day, and it takes between 50 and 75 volunteers to make it a well-run event. And between those of you in the community that have been so helpful, and we have some Exeter High kids, we have some Phillips Exeter kids. Last year, Brewster Academy sent us some kids. St. Thomas, Dave Morissette and his crew sent us some, and it's just a great day.
And everybody gets involved. That's what I'm really impressed. You mentioned all the kids that get involved, all the students that get involved, and they really are involved. They don't just kind of fade off
Nope.
into the woodwork. They're there and they help out, and they're especially with the athletes that are in the events. They're rooting them on and trying to help out any way they can.
One of the beauties, one of my favorite things about the Special Olympics program at Exeter High School, and Hannah has done a great job of maintaining it, is we have approximately 30 athletes, and each one of those athletes has peer coaches, which are Exeter High School students that are out there twice a week, helping them train and then supporting them in their events. In some cases, it's one-on-one. In some cases, it's 2 or 3-on-1. And those peer coaches, that experience, I think, is just as meaningful as it is for the athletes. And it's one of the things I'm most proud about our program at Exeter High School.
And I think the only downside is some of those student athletes that help out, they graduate and move on, but they never forget you, and if they're around, they come back. That's the other thing I'm impressed by.
They absolutely do. A bunch of them will show up that day and see what they can do to help out and cheer on their athlete. And in many cases, they're with them for 4 years that they're there at the school. We had a fun one graduate of Exeter High School had a young man as her coach. And when he graduated, his brother took over. And when he graduated, the third brother took over. So that young lady had the opportunity to have 12 years of one set of brothers as their coaches. It was really fun. It's special. It's just, in Sherm, one of the things that I say this all the time, I think it's one of the best programs at Exeter High School, because as I go around in the special needs world, many of these kids that have been peer coaches become special education teachers, become case managers, are out in the world, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, and they find the experience something that's meaningful and they pursue it. And the number of special educators that program has produced, I think, is one of the really special things of our program.
I agree. And I know that in the state of New Hampshire, the NHIAA has unified sports programs throughout the different seasons. And we always talk about it at all the NHIAA events that, it's an outlet where these guys and gals can get involved, and you just hit it on the head. The student athletes that are part of the team, and also the coaches. God love the coaches. I know up in Exeter High School, Catherine Nichols does soccer and basketball, and she does a great job with those programs. And you have to have I'm going to call it a special touch to be able to help out those athletes, and then to have, like you say, the student athletes that are on court with them or on the field with them.
Shout out to Catherine. Catherine's going to retire in June, and Exeter High School will miss her very much, because she's just been a MVP in that program. Billy Ball was involved, Sharon Orchard was involved, but Catherine, the last 5 or 6, 7 years, has really carried the ball, and Exeter High School will miss her. She's been invaluable. She's the best.
You hit it on the head. She is an all-star, and because another thing about coaching, especially at that level, it's not about the wins and losses. It's about the teaching element of also about the sports themselves. They're getting the best out of the athletes, obviously, but I keep stressing this. I don't care. It's an element of having fun playing a sport. If you're not having it as an athlete, well, it's not going to work, and it's not going to be a long-term investment for the student athlete either.
I've always said that my involvement with special education and with those athletes made me a better varsity coach, because I needed to understand, I needed to see a big picture, I needed to find different ways, not straight ahead, always hit the nail on the head with a hammer. But they teach us as many lessons as we teach them. And my involvement with Special Olympics and special needs athletes helped me be a better varsity coach. No question.
I've asked you this question every time we talk about this particular topic. I do want you to give the listeners a thumbnail of how you and the Tufts family got involved with the Special Olympics program.
Well, that's a long story, but I was I had just graduated. I was about 2 weeks graduated from Phillips Exeter my senior year when in June of '70 the first annual Special Olympics track meet and swim meet took place at Phillips Exeter Academy with Gene and Arthur Tufts as the directors. It featured Rockingham School, Special Children, Great Bay School, Laconia State School, Crotchet Mountain, Derry, Manchester, and first was the first track meet. The first track meet was in '70 at Phillips Exeter and '71 at Exeter High School, and in 1972, Special Olympics New Hampshire incorporated, and they were off and running. And so I was a gopher that very first year, and my mom was as good a role model as a teenager could have. And we were in it from day one. And then when my oldest son, Matthew, was born prematurely and became a Special Olympic athlete, we were all hands on deck. So, it was mom and dad. I had my Exeter group. My sister Ann was an occupational therapist in Newmarket and led a Newmarket team for years. So this has been a lifelong journey, and it's pretty special to all of us. Thanks.
How did you, and I don't think I've ever asked you this question. What was the first sport you got involved in school? I mean, what was your sport? And I know you're a multi-sport athlete, but what was the first one?
Oh, we did them all: soccer, hockey, baseball. We played basketball as a kid. A good Saturday morning was scrape the ice at Phillips Exeter, play hockey for an hour and a half, trudge over to the Talbot gym, play basketball for a couple hours, go someplace and have lunch, and then go to Phillips Exeter, Exeter High School, and watch a high school game. So, growing up in Exeter, it was so different because we hopped on our bikes. Those of us on the high street end of town would hop on our bikes and we'd ride down to Park Street and play the kids at Park Street, and then we'd meet somebody at the Little League field at Lincoln Street, and we'd play another group from there. So our pack was it was interesting because we played them all. We played soccer, football, basketball, hockey, those things. And part of my impetus, I went to Exeter High School as a freshman, but my freshman year, Exeter High School didn't have a soccer team and didn't have a hockey team. And that was part of my impetus for going across town was I wanted to play soccer and I wanted to play hockey. I wanted to play baseball. And Exeter High did. Those teams were created during my high school tenure, 68, 69. But those of us that really wanted to play, and getting an education was a plus, but I was a typical teenager. I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
So the answer is D, all of the above.
All the above. I think that's you hit it on the head. It was simpler times. You're exactly right. We just hop on our bikes and go find cousins or friends and have just, pick up games of whatever the sport was. You didn't have to have an organized league and or travel teams and all this other stuff that kind of complicates life. Everybody has to have it seems like a chauffeur to take them from game to game to game to game and all that. And now in our day, it was, hey, somebody would call up on a real phone, and say, "Hey, do you want to play ball?" And say, "Sure, meet us at the field." And we'd go up to one of the fields here in town and have a ball game or whatever. Or just it's a little more complicated now, Jim.
It is, and I'm not sure it's for the better all the time either. And kids learned kids learned to figure things out, because if the teams weren't fair, somebody volunteered to switch teams. If somebody had to go because they had a doctor's appointment, then you couldn't hit the right field,
Right.
or you threw to the pitcher instead of first base.
Right.
And
Right.
kids would figure out, how can we make this successful, and how can we, you didn't have a dad, you didn't have a umpire, you just sorted it out. And those were all such great life skills for us
Yeah.
as adolescents.
The only thing we had to worry about is usually our parents would say, be home by whatever the time dinner was, 5 o'clock or whatever, or be home at a certain time. That you had to kind of keep, or hopefully somebody had to watch.
Yeah, and everybody tracks their kids now and where they are and that sort of thing. And I used to say, my parents knew I was at somebody's house.
Right.
Well, somebody was going to take care of me. And I can remember, I was at a buddy's house, and I ended up having appendicitis, and somebody else got me to the hospital. It wasn't my parents. It was where I was that particular day. And so everybody's families, everybody's parents, it took a village long before it was politically correct to take a village. You knew somebody's parents had an eye on you.
It was all hands on deck, everybody helping each other out.
That's the way it was.
And it wasn't complicated by having to have a schedule on your phone to know where you have to be at a certain time, and take days off just to make sure you could be at a tournament or whatever the case was. It was just kind of, just let's have some fun. And then,
yeah, and you know what? Competition was always pretty good.
well, we talked about officiating and yeah, earlier before we started the program. Now you're busy as an official for lacrosse this season, and now do you officiate any other sports other than lacrosse now, or
So I
soccer?
do soccer in the fall.
Soccer in the fall.
Soccer in the fall. Yeah, when I stopped coaching, gosh, it's 7 years now, Sherm. So it always surprises me when I say that number. But when I stopped coaching, I went to officiating because just weren't enough, and it was a great way to stay involved in the game. So, I officiate high school and prep school, boys and girls, soccer in the fall, and then just boys lacrosse in the spring.
And this year in particular, season's underway. I know you get to see different teams. You're not just doing the Seacoast teams. You're branched out all over the place. Any teams that you've seen so far that we can kind of look out for?
No, it'll be the usual suspects. I had Portsmouth Winnacunnet Monday night. What a great contest! Those two, both Portsmouth Winnacunnet, will be Final Four teams, and they could be the top two standing. They're both going to be outstanding this year.
It's interesting how things sort out, and lacrosse in particular. It was a sport I didn't know a lot about, and I think I've told this story before. Years ago, when I was in high school, and Dick Eustace was the athletic director, Phillips Academy had given a bunch of their old lacrosse equipment to Exeter High School, and all of a sudden during PE one day, Coach Eustace said, "Let's go out and play lacrosse." And a lot of us had never even seen any of that equipment before, but in particular, the ball. It hurts when it hits you.
So I've done it for almost 20 years now, and I've been hit twice, and it hurts.
and in those days, they didn't have the high-tech equipment. Everything is, with the helmets and all that other jazz. We just went out there with the basic equipment and no padding or anything. And it was interesting. I was the target for a lot of the older guys.
There you go. Yeah, no, any young person that says they want to be a lacrosse goalie, give them all the credit in the world, because I wouldn't want that thing coming at me at 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. It hurts.
And it's been fun. I got involved with the Blue Hawks in the past few seasons, and I'm getting more of an education and a feel for lacrosse, and people who say, well, what that's all about, give it a chance, because if you like, it's a cross of, as far as I'm concerned, you got basketball elements, you got football elements, you got hockey elements. It's a little bit of everything, and it is a finesse sport. You have to be in the game.
Yeah, it's a great crossover sport for all those. Throw in soccer as well. The way the kids move, and and interchange roles. So all those sports you spoke of, it's a great, and that's one of the beauties of, I've always said one of the beauties of Exeter High School is that you get a lot of multi-sport athletes that use those skills from other sports in, one of them may end up being their dominant sport, but because they're conversant in all of them, they have success. And, Billy, that was always one of his mantras. And you look at the coaches that were at Exeter High School, McQueen and Holmesy and Billy and the women as well. They always emphasized multi-sports. And there's too many schools and too many high school kids now that are one sport athletes. And that's just not the norm at Exeter High School.
Yeah, and the other thing that going back to a point we made earlier is, and if an athlete is having fun, I don't care, a guy or a gal, whatever sport they really want to play, let them have fun playing it. And a lot of parents have this thing in their head that they want the kid to become pro at some point, or get a college scholarship, a full boat ride to some name brand college. That's great. That's great. But it's like buying a lottery ticket too. Just have fun what you're doing right now, and then work your way up. You can, address skills. Sure, if you've got a guy or gal that's got a special talent, fine. But it just seems like there's a little too much focus on, and that's where these kids get a little bit kind of off the track and lose focus.
Can't see the forest for the trees.
Exactly.
I had a young man that played for me, and I saw him as a parent. He had a couple kids in youth sports, and we got talking, and he said, "Coach, my goal is my boys can play high school sports." He says, "That's my goal." And I just gave him a hug. I just said, it's such a refreshing goal, attitude, perception, that I want my kids to be able to play sports in high school. And if anything happens beyond that, you're fortunate. Yeah. But to be able to enjoy high school sports and your friends and the camaraderie should be every parent's goal.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, the fact that the 4 years of high school, somebody's maturing and learning a sport or a skill in a sport, and if it goes beyond that, great. But we know, even listening to what we on TV every day on the sports shows, all the complications in sports now, college sports, it's a business now. It's a total business. Terrible. And ditto with the different pro sports. It's dollars and cents, and I can't figure out how college coaches now put up with a lot of this name, image, likeness, and also the transfer portal, which to me, and that's scary. I hope it doesn't happen, this open enrollment thing, for one simple reason. I don't want to see kids bouncing from school to school or be recruited from school to school at the high school level. That'd be ridiculous.
It'd be crazy. I have a good friend, college coach, and he said, I rarely talk to a parent. All I talk to is agents. It's all I talk to. It's just, it's college athletics. You couldn't write a check big enough for me to coach in college. It's just, the integrity of it it's just sad.
Yeah, even Ryan Day at Ohio State, he admits that I read an article recently that basically they're dinosaurs. Even his generation, he's a young guy. I mean, they've got to get in with this new method of recruiting and keeping these guys on board, because it used to be a commitment. And I've said this in previous shows. If you went to like UNH and you committed to a Coach Mack or somebody to play a sport, you were there for the 4 years if committed to that school program. Now it's like, if you're not playing me enough, I'm going somewhere else. And that's it's just not good for coaches. I mean, I can't see how they could put up with that.
There was a stat on ESPN just before March Madness started that there was one senior graduating in the SEC basketball all the basketball programs, the SEC, one senior graduating from the school he started at. One.
Yeah.
One. of all those schools.
That's sad. And you like the success stories, and I know here in Exeter we've had Hunter Long made it to the NFL, smart kid, and put the time in school. And then of course we got Cody Morissette who's playing in the Miami Marlins farm system, and those kids put their time in school. And
Ben
then
Measuring playing AAA.
yeah, and he's in AAA right now. And this is the thing; those are examples of it can happen. And I saw a few guys at UNH that have moved on to the pros. But the fact is, it is like getting the winning lottery ticket. It just, enjoy the sports while you're playing them.
Yep.
Well, I
Yep.
want to ask you about sports. I'm shifting gears. Talk about the Bruins for a second. What do you think going into the playoffs?
Well, I think they've had a successful year just making the playoffs. This is supposed to be, they've discovered some, the Fraser Minton trade, Swayman's now their goalie. They've got some good young kids that are coming into the pipeline. So it was supposed to be a rebound year, a rebuild year, and they did well to make the playoffs. Buffalo's a great matchup, and they got a shot, I think, to get out of the first round. But if they get into the semifinals, that's huge. That they've Sweeney's done a nice job, Sturm's done a nice job, and they've done well. So I don't think they're going to win it. I don't think anybody thinks they're going to win it, but they got a chance. A, they made it, and B, they got a chance to get out of the first round, and good for them.
Well, who do you think is going to hoist the cup at the end? What right now?
So I think it's going to be my pick in the East is Tampa Bay, and the West it's Colorado. They're the top seeds, and in hockey the top seeds rarely win. In the East, Tampa's very good, and Carolina's very good. But I think it always comes down to goaltending, and Carolina's got a good team, but they don't have the goaltending. The last couple of years I've picked Florida because of Bobrovsky, and I think Vasilevsky in Tampa could lead them to the cup. Out west, McKinnon's had a great year. They've sort of got the goaltending figured out. Makar is tremendous. And I think the one that could spoil it for them out there is McDavid. They've been in the last two finals, and they found a way to do it. He is a tremendous talent. He's one of these generational guys. I think on the TV this morning, he led the league in scoring, and it's the fourth time in 6 years. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
with some of these guys that are out there. So I think I'm picking Tampa, Colorado, with Edmonton as the dark horse.
So again, another sport that you've obviously been in love with for a long time is soccer, and the World Cup is coming to New England. Are you going to get involved with watching any of those games?
So that was the great debate for anybody that's a real aficionado, right? Is do I want to fight the masses to get to Foxborough to see those guys play live, or do I want to sit on my couch and watch them and watch the replays? And one of my assistants, and actually my brother-in-law, Tony, is a soccer guy and a Scot, and Scotland's going to be in Foxborough. And so we kind of entertained the notion, and there are going to be some great teams in. Scotland's going to be down there. France is going to be down there. There's some real talented players. They're going to be in Foxborough. But Foxborough is hard to get to anyway. Just for a one-day event.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're talking about 65 hardcore soccer people trying to Uber or MBTA or buses, or how they're going to do it. And the security and everything else. So no, I'm going to watch on TV.
I agree with you. Crank up the HDTV.
Yeah, there's going to be some. Foxborough's got some real great games. There are going to be some great games there.
Now in the World Cup, who do you think will come out on top there, or who are the top teams you think will be involved?
Oh, there's some real. There, France is very, very good. Brazil is always in the mix. There's some European teams. England will be in the mix. It comes down to the moments, and it comes down to health. Who can play 90 minutes and win 6 or 7 games. So
It's going to be a challenge.
a lot of variables, but there's some very, very and we're fortunate now. When we were kids, right? We're lucky if you got Channel 38 to watch the Bruins.
That's right.
And see the Celts once in a while, and the Red Sox were always on the radio, right? You always had a radio listening to the Red Sox. I remember fall of '78, we went out to a soccer practice, and both goalies, Johnny Booth and Artie Mantel, had a radio. It was the Bucky Dent home run game.
Yeah. We remember that one.
But that's how we all, right? But you can, Saturday and Sundays, every day of the week, you can watch a premiere, you can watch an England, Italy, Germany, Spain, European, you can watch a soccer game every day. And so I think people in this country are more fluent and understand soccer better. And, we're fortunate, but it'll be fun having it here.
It will be fun. I want to double back to the Special Olympics event that's coming up May 17th at Exeter High School. We can always use folks to join us that day to help out in all the different events. And there's all sorts of things that people can bail us out and help us out with, because there's a lot of moving parts that day. And our guest today, Jim Tufts, is the guy that's in charge of seeing that everything moves the way it should. And you do a heck of a job, my friend. You really do.
You.
And you just make sure you get a lot of rest the day before. So you're.
I got to get up. Day before is lining and chalk, because, you have a 400-meter track where hundreds and 200s and 400s are marked off. But for my event, I need 10 meters and 25 meters and 50 meters. And so again, with my volunteers and my friends, I'm out there with chalk. I got in a little trouble last year because Maddie and I and another fellow spent probably 2 hours putting down lines, and it poured.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday night. And we had to go back in Sunday morning with our chalk and do them all over again.
Let's get some nice sunny 70-degree day for the events. If anybody wants to help out, your contact information, pass that on, please.
Sure. The easiest thing to get me is probably my email, tufts.jim42@gmail.
Okay. And then Matt
will compete. Yep. Yeah. He's one of our crew. So he'll compete, and we have a great group. It's kids that are currently at CMS and Exeter High. And then a lot of our old athletes are Exeter High alums that just,
Amen.
It's great fun, and they keep coming back every spring.
Yeah, well, you got me hooked, and I'll be there for sure.
We'll look forward to it.
And it's going back to when I opened the program. I said you were our first guest when you retired, and you brought it up. It's 7 years that we've been doing this.
7 years. Yeah, it surprises me every time I say that.
7 years, and we're just like fine wine. We're growing mellow with age.
Well, always a pleasure, Sherm.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on board, and we'll look forward to being with you on the 17th at Exeter High School. And if anybody wants to join us for the Special Olympics Day, I believe me, you will have fun and you'll feel good. And like Jim said, when you leave, you'll say, "When are we doing it again?" And it'll be a commitment for that you'll really appreciate and feel good about. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the program, please pass the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And don't forget, you can contact us by just sending us an email at seacoastsportsforum@yahoo.com. So on behalf of our special guest today, Jim Tufts, this is Sherm Chester, inviting you to join us for the next edition of the Seacoast Sports Forum podcast.